Where do you draw the line between a rare and uncommon retro game? That's not an easy question to answer, unfortunately. Just because it depends on your experience in the region of the country you're from. Games are released nationwide, but for example, a game like TNC Surf designs on the West Coast, California, San Diego, LA, very common game, and just common, like a 3 out of 10, maybe a 4 out of 10 on the East Coast. You're gonna find it not as often. For rare and uncommon, I look at it this way: can I always find a rare game if I want to? If I snap my fingers and I look online, can I find that rare game easily? Or could I come across it every now and then? Probably not. Doesn't mean it's going to be impossible to find, but I should be able to find it, just not at a good clip. An uncommon game I will find semi-regularly, whether at a swap meet, flea market, retro game conventions. I'll find it almost every single one, and multiple copies. Like an uncommon game, I should walk at your average retro game event, which I go to about 10 a year now, 8 to 10 a year. I should be able to find a dozen or more uncommon of the same game. I should be able to find, I should be able to find a dozen Lethal Weapon games. Maybe 10 at your average retro game event. I will not find a dozen Gun Knacks at your average retro game event. See, that's the difference. I'll find maybe a couple. If I go on eBay, I'll be able to find them all the time, which is why, again, I don't want to get into that Little Samson conversation, but there's always like 10 Little Samsons on eBay. Is that truly rare, or is it rare and collectors are constantly selling it? That's another conversation. I think it's still rare, but that's a little hitchy, that one. But again, if it's truly a rare game, I should have problems finding it. I should have problems finding Panic Restaurant, but not necessarily The Last Starfighter. Even The Last Starfighter, that's uncommon, borderline very uncommon. See, it's just about your experience. Again, I've been collecting games for 20 years, so you're not always going to be accurate, but at least you have that 20 years to go off of to sort of have a baseline of how often you see games, how often you hear other collectors are looking for them. I'm looking at an Alfred Chicken right now in the NES. That's at least very uncommon, according to a certain NES guidebook. You can make a case for rare. It really depends. Now you're splicing hairs between very uncommon and rare. There's a bigger divide between uncommon and rare, though. Again, it comes down to how often you see it. Will you find it in the wild? Again, I know people that have found Bonk's Adventure, Little Samson in the wild. I found the Zombie Nation in the wild. So your mile's going to vary, but it's more about the experience. And I hate to say it, eBay's kind of, and the current market's kind of skewed it, which is why I hate to bring up the guidebook. But I've based my more experience in the past 20 years than the past couple years when it comes to rarity. Because now that stuff's in collectors' hands, and stuff that is getting stuff's getting flipped, or stuff's getting pyramid schemed, so to speak, and getting swapped around between other people trying to make the most buck on their quote-unquote rare game. It's harder to get a better gauge on where how common games are now versus even 5 or 6 years ago.